Today's guest is someone who is refining what mountain biking can look like. While most riders see a race course, Matt Fairbrother sees an adventure. Whether it's climbing over 10,000 vertical meters in 24 hours, riding between the Enduro World Series rounds, taking on the Tour du Mont Blanc on a bike, or self-supported expeditions, Matt has built a reputation for choosing the harder path simply to see what's possible. But this conversation isn't really about the numbers, the distance, or the elevation gain. It's about what drives someone to keep pushing further when no one is asking them to. Why suffering can be rewarding, why uncertainty can be exciting, and what you learn about yourself when you're on the bike alone for hours, days, or even weeks at a time. We dive into adventure, endurance, racing, risk, and the mindset that has taken Matt from a young racer in New Zealand to one of the most interesting figures in mountain biking today. This conversation is about pushing the limits, chasing curiosity, and finding the meaning through adventure. Please welcome Matt Fairbrother to the Dynamic Life Cycles podcast. All right, Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. How was your ride down?
It was a bit savage, massive headwind the whole way. So yeah, punishing, but yeah, not a bad place to spend the day on the bike.
Yeah, definitely. And it was nice and warm out there today as well.
Yeah, cold start, got a bit wet, but now it's, the sun's come out and started to get a bit hot.
Yeah.
So all seasons today.
Yeah, definitely. I have to ask, what are you doing in Vancouver at the moment?
Came here with the goal to do a mission, which I ticked off last week, and yeah, now just hanging about.
Yeah, nice. And can you talk about that mission?
Yeah, so I guess here in Vancouver on the North Shore, there's a few mountains, and there's an iconic mission to basically go to the top of each mountain. And I went and did that multiple times in one day, just to see how many times I could do it, basically.
Yeah, okay. I was looking at how you did it. I'm interested to know the route, because did you lap or did you go back and forwards?
I went back and forth. Okay. So I guess I did it the normal way, and then backwards, and then the normal way, then backwards, and yeah. Okay.
And when I don't remember where I saw it, whether it was on social media or whatever, but the fifth lap, why the fifth lap?
So 2 years ago, I did it back to back to back, and then ever since then, it's kind of been on my mind, could I do 4?
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of years to come back and to give it a shot, and that's what I did last week. And at the start of the 4th lap, I wasn't feeling too bad, and then when you kind of do big missions, there's always highs and lows, and often the highs are super high, the lows can be super low.
Yeah.
But on those highs, you start to think, oh, could I do this? Could I do that? So schemed up the idea, could I do 5? And it definitely wasn't like I committed to it then. It was like, if I finish 4 and I feel good, maybe we go for 5. And then I finished the 4th, which was meant to be the finish, and I still felt okay.
Yeah.
So, it takes so much effort and time to even get to the point to attempt a 5th.
Yeah.
So if I didn't give it a shot, I wouldn't have been able to live with myself.
Yeah.
So I went and gave the 5th lap a shot and managed to get it done.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've definitely been in that position many times where I'm like on this insane high 3/4 of the way through a ride, and you're like, all right, yeah, I'm good. And then you just hit this low, and it's like almost like you're in the darkest room in the world. It's insane. But the whole reason I wanted to get you on is to chat about this type of stuff and this type of riding, because I don't know if there's many people out there that actually understand what it's like to ride for like 15 hours straight, 3-4 hours. Yes. Like it's a big mission. And for some people that's going to be huge. But then when you then times that by quite a lot. Like I just feel like it's just such a different headspace to be in. And as you say, those highs and lows, I feel like they get further apart the further you go into the ride. Do you find that?
I think it changes, I think you sit on this tipping point, and for me, it's not consistent. The highs can last for hours, or they could last for minutes. Same with the lows, but I think no matter what side you're on, I'm always aware that it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, especially when it sucks, it's not going to suck forever. There will be a high after that. Well, at least you hope so anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself. So I always just keep pushing on.
Yeah, eventually it has to end, whether you
Exactly.
choose to end or the actual ride finishes, for sure. So I want to go back to the beginning a little bit and work out where it started for you, like growing up in New Zealand and things like that. Whereabouts in New Zealand were you growing up?
So I've lived in the South Island my whole life. Until I was about 5 or 6, we lived kind of out in some farmland, had a bit of land. And then when I was, about 5 or 6, kind of moved towards the city and kind of, lived that kind of life until I found bikes at about 10.
Yeah. And then what got you into the bikes? Was it like parents and stuff like that, or just mucking around with friends, or?
So my oldest sibling, who's a few years older than me, he got into the high school mountain bike club.
Okay.
And then he pulled my dad into it, who used to mountain bike. So they both got into it, and then I followed, basically. I'm quite competitive.
Yeah.
With my family. I always want to be the best. So I guess that's why maybe I took it up. I wanted to kind of get involved and be better than them and show them up.
Yeah, for sure. And then that was what you said, around 10 years old, and then you started progressing through that. When you did quite a big ride, when you were 17, 18, is that sort of where these bigger rides started to click, or were you doing them even younger than that?
I think the first big one was when I was 15.
Yeah.
That was maybe the beginning of COVID, and that's when a lot of kind of uphill challenges started to take off online. And I guess I wasn't doing much. I wasn't at school because of COVID.
Yeah.
I had a lot of time to myself, a lot of time in my own head, and thought, why don't I do that? And didn't think why I couldn't do that. So I went and did it.
Yeah, right. So like, what ride was that? Like, when you say that was one of your bigger first rides, like what did that differ from the other rides?
So that big one was climbing the height equivalent of the tallest mountain in the world. So that is just under 9,000 meters.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the first time I'd actually maybe set a goal, distance or height wise.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe I'd done 4 or 5 hours before that, but never kind of pushed, into what is quite big, I suppose. Yeah.
And what did your parents think of that?
Maybe, I'm not too sure. They're definitely supportive, but I think they have to be. I'm quite stubborn and I don't like being told no.
Okay.
So I think they knew if they didn't support that, I was going to go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But I was better to have their support and their guidance with me to help me achieve that than just doing it alone and, taking a bigger chance in that aspect.
Yeah. Did you find in that sort of first one, and maybe you don't remember as much, because I know in my own rides, I've definitely blanked out a lot of stuff. Do you find in some of that first ride that you felt some different things you hadn't felt on rides, in the way of like different emotions and different things like that coming up, or is it not, you don't really remember too much?
Yeah, not too much clicks, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why I keep coming back to these things. I feel like I've done quite a lot of things now and not much has sunk into my head and has stayed there. I often forget and just move on.
Yeah. So then I guess moving forwards a little bit, where did the idea for the enduro racing and riding between those events come in?
I guess I've always been quite competitive, and I guess at home the evolution of just being competitive, kind of moving up each year to the bigger events, domestically, nationally. Eventually it kind of led to me wanting to head overseas.
Yeah.
And being, I guess, 16, I was 16 at the time, and the EWS, now the EDR, was meant to come to New Zealand, and that was my big goal I was working towards.
Mm-hmm.
Then COVID cancelled that 2 years back to back, and that goal was taken away, and I felt like I had nothing to work towards. So I shifted that goal to then heading overseas to do the EWS, which was a big step up, living in New Zealand on the other side of the world and having no connections overseas, not much money, I guess. Just being that young, and I'm so stubborn. Like if I want to make something happen, I'm going to make it happen. And basically at 17, I booked the plane ticket over there, plane ticket back, and the in between I hadn't worked out. Didn't have much money, and I had a couple months over there, and the plan was to kind of meet some people over there, jump in someone's van ideally, and get to all the World Cups that way. But I got to the first World Cup in Scotland, and basically I was just super shy, talked to no one. Ended up bumping into Win Masters though, who's also a fellow Kiwi.
Yeah.
That was the first time I met him, first time he'd met me and heard of me. And I was telling him I didn't know how to get to the next World Cup, and he was saying, "Oh, you should bike there." And that talking to Win, I guess being a young Kiwi, he's like an idol.
Yeah.
He's a big figure, and I felt like I couldn't say no. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And he thought I was joking, and the next World Cup was in Slovenia. I hadn't even looked at a map to see how far away that was. Like I knew it was far, obviously, but not 1.8 thousand kilometers far.
Yeah.
And I told him yes, and kind of when I say I'm going to do something, I'm committed.
Yeah.
And before even looking at a map or whatever, I was committed to the idea, and I made it happen. It solved my issue of not having a way to get there, and I was there for the journey. So when I got that one done too.
Was that the one? And I just remember reading somewhere in those early days that you rode some ridiculous distance within a week. Like the races were like a week back to back, or maybe a week, 2 weeks back to back, or something like that. And you rode, one of the days was like a 350 kilometer day or something like that in between the races. Was that early on, or was that a bit later on? Do you remember?
I think that was at the end of that season. I think it was, I had 5 days. There's a World Cup in Switzerland, and then 5 days later was a World Cup in Ludenville, and it was a little bit over 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
So I was putting in like about 16 to 20 hour shifts each day to make it there on time.
And back then, like, did you split your gear up, or were you carrying all of your gear? Because I know at one point you'd swapped onto like road tires and things like that, but did you do that from the beginning, or how did you set the bike up to ride between the events?
I guess it was quite simple. I had almost no gear, but I worked out, and also I guess people wanted to help me out as much as they could, which I was quite fortunate by. But I worked out that at the World Cups, all the teams would take off their tires, after 1 day of use, and they'd just chuck them behind their tents and their pit setups.
Yeah. So
I'd get to these World Cups, and I'd go and scavenge for tires, which were used but basically new.
Yeah.
And at that first World Cup in Scotland, Wynn had helped me source some slick tires. So I managed to keep those slick tires all season, and swap them out for the commutes.
Yeah, nice. And then just like carry all your camping gear and everything else on the bike.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I barely had any camping gear anyway, so it was quite simple, just a few changes of clothes and
Yeah.
full face, half face, and yeah, no cooking equipment, just kept it quite light.
Yeah. Did you have much support from sponsors or anything on that first one?
That first year, no. Domestically, I'd support, but overseas, no. Although Deviate Cycles, who unfortunately kind of are no longer the same, or
Yeah.
they've had some tough times, you know.
Yeah.
But at the start, yeah, they helped kit me out with some gear to help bike pack, since that wasn't the plan. So the owner Ben, he went and bought me some bike packing bags and
Sweet.
kitted me out for that. So he was a big help at the start, and obviously useful since they're located in Scotland as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that all worked out quite well.
Yeah, nice. And what was it like going from, like, let's call it small town New Zealand, because realistically it is like when you compare it to some of the other spots in the world, it's like almost like a country town. But how does that feel when you were going from there into some of these places in Europe? How's that for you?
I guess the thing that stands out is the language.
Yeah.
Like that first year, I was so shy and so scared, which is basically why I ended up in the situation of commuting between all these World Cups anyway. But I was just scared to go into shops, scared to talk to people. I just avoided people. So I was quite isolated that first year. Definitely a lot better now, a lot more comfortable, but I think that first year helped me kind of spend time with myself and be super self-sufficient, just because I didn't want to deal with anyone. But also the other big thing is that it's so densely populated, you're never far away. There's always a town.
Yeah.
There's always something. Whereas in New Zealand, it's all quite sparse. So in a way, even though I wasn't wanting to deal with anyone, it was quite comfortable knowing that, like, worst case, there's always kind of some type of civilization close by.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not, as you say, like New Zealand's very much like spotted towns throughout the islands versus, as you say, Europe, it's like every couple of kilometers there's a new little town somewhere down the road for sure. But yeah, interesting about the language, because like I've done a little bit of travel through Europe, and it's just traveling by yourself is so nerve-wracking when you got to walk into like even like something simple like a bakery, and you just have no idea how to even ask for like a piece of bread or a donut or whatever, you know, like pretty wild to think about back then for you. So when did the, like, sort of talking about racing versus the adventure side of things, is that something you've always tried to mix, or do you find that you're starting to separate that a little bit in the sense of what your focus and your goals are?
Yeah, well, I'd say the core of it all is like chasing that feeling, you know, that satisfaction. And for me, that comes out of always getting better, and pushing myself. And it doesn't exactly have to be a certain form of anything. As long as I feel like I'm moving forward, getting that feeling, that's what I'm chasing. So I guess initially that was by competing in these events and pushing my abilities in a skill aspect, I guess.
Yeah.
And then doing all these commutes between the World Cups kind of flared up this other side of how far can I pedal, how big of a day can I do. So then I started to have both of these things like side by side simultaneously, and it got to a point where like I kind of plateaued with both of them.
Yeah.
I think because I wasn't giving either one enough focus. So then I felt like to keep moving forward and to keep finding that feeling, I had to pick one or the other. And for me, I thought there were more opportunities with the adventure and the long distance, and that side of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there was maybe more to explore. Like it was going to be maybe harder to find a plateau because there was always somewhere new to go to. and I feel like I could shape that path a lot more than chasing the World Cup circuit.
Yeah. Yeah, because you did the World Cups for what, like 3 years? Was it 3 years? You
Yeah.
kind of on and off a little bit, and then this year, because what would that be, like 22, 23, 24, I guess?
Exactly. Yeah. Did the full season each of those years.
Yeah. And did all 3 years you ride between the events?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure in the third year if you did that or not, or if you had other support and things, but just jumping back on that as a full question that popped into my head, what was the attention like as that sort of story grew for you? Like, obviously more and more people are like getting in contact, and like you're getting a bit more sponsorship, getting a bit more support. How was that changing throughout the years as you're continuing to do essentially the same type of thing with riding between all the events? Did that change much for you in that style?
Yeah, totally. I guess the first year there was this massive buzz, a lot of excitement, a lot of talk, and that led to a lot of opportunities. So jumped on as many of those as I could, and then heading into the second year, I guess a lot of the sponsorship talks were to continue that, continue bike packing in that second year. But I guess in a way you could look at it as more, at that point it was more work. It was more doing it for the support and the attention, like with the goal of, getting attention and getting some visibility for sponsors and partners and so on. And like, I definitely did still want to do it. But I guess, yeah, there's always the juggle of visibility and sponsors and all that. So yeah, I mean, that second year still went good. There was a lot to juggle, but there was less buzz. But I'd say that was still successful. And then going to the third year, I guess doing the same thing again for the third time, there was even less buzz, and I was maybe not doing the best job of getting that visibility in terms of maybe making content and so on. Yeah. And that third year felt a bit pointless, maybe, or less so. There was less value in it. And I definitely felt like I needed to change something, whether that was change paths or focus more on content. But it also maybe felt less genuine at that point. So that was kind of when I decided to pivot.
Yeah, that was definitely what I was going to ask you, is like, as like you repeat yourself so many times, obviously it's going to just feel like exactly that. It's just a repetition versus finding that new adventure. And then I know you did like an FKT on Mont Blanc and a couple other things. Was that like trying to reach into that new world a little bit of like trying different things?
Yeah, exactly. That was just kind of giving something a go. In my eyes, there was no consequence with that one. It was a cool concept. Doing a lap of Mont Blanc, circumnavigating it, and there's some good biking, and insane mountain, of course.
Yeah.
And
how was that? Because I remember watching the video, and like you can go into a bit of detail here, but like it just seems so insane. And then at the same time, or within reason, the same time, same year, my fiance went and did it as a hike over the space of, I think it was 10 days or something like that. But watching you do it on the bike, I'm like, that is such a sick idea. Like, I didn't even know you could ride around it, let alone like do it in the way you did it. But how was that for you?
Yeah, so it's a popular hike, and it is a hike, I'd say. Biking it, there was a lot of hiker bike. But for me, that was quite exciting. Like the thing which excites me the most in mountain biking is the technical aspect. It's getting into the mountains and kind of pushing the limits physically and technically. And yeah, that definitely did that. And I don't think anyone had ever kind of gone and did the full loop on a mountain bike in one go. So that was quite exciting to see if I could get it done. And yeah, I mean, it's a few years ago now. It feels a bit lost in my head, but that was, I'd say, definitely what kind of started this kind of chain of wanting to kind of do new big challenges and new places. Yeah,
I want to say that I remember when you you drank the water or whatever it was, and then you had like the worst stomach ache and like throwing up and stuff. I'm like, that sounds like the most classic like country town New Zealand guy just drinking the water. Because I feel like in Australia it's the same. It's like when there's running water, you just drink it. And I feel like here and Europe for that matter, everyone's so scared about drinking the water from the streams. Like, I just thought that was like one of the funniest things, especially talking to all the boys. And they're like, oh, did you see me drank the water? And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's normal. So, but yeah, that's kind of funny. But so moving forwards from that with the like that ride and things like that, and that sort of opened a couple of doors, I guess, with a bit more visibility on content and that type of thing, was it?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess out of that big challenge, there was a video, and I'd say it went quite successful, especially for the investment that went into it. Like, I edited that video, had some help filming it, of course, but yeah, like in terms of what we got out of it for the investment, it went super well, and it definitely kind of made me think, oh, what potential is in this moving forward, in this space. Like, could I do a few of these things a year? And at that time, I guess I was still focused on doing the World Cups. That was still where I wanted to succeed, but I felt maybe juggling kind of these big challenges and the World Cups, there was more opportunity for support to kind of help me, I guess, fuel that lifestyle and to get to these events. So yeah, somewhat doubled down on that, but didn't lose the idea of competing on the World Cup scene.
Yeah. And then last year, so like, what were you doing last year in the way of racing and stuff, or did you not do much racing?
I barely did any, but it wasn't the plan. I was meant to do half of the World Cup season, but then the first half of the year, I injured myself back to back. I did my scapula and then tore the UCL on my thumb.
Yeah.
So that took me out until basically July. And I was meant to do the first half of the World Cup season. So yeah, last year was meant to be a 50-50 split, with the first half of the year focused on the World Cups, and then the second half focused on some big long distance challenges. But yeah, in the end, kind of had to miss out on that World Cup season.
Yeah. So what were some of the bigger ones you did last year?
Good question. What happened last year?
Because what year did you do I've got it written down here. Oh, it's 2024. You did the New Zealand Enduro where you like kayaked and everything that. That was pretty wild.
Yeah. I think that was definitely one of my peaks. Still can't believe like how well that went to plan. 6-day event. I think there was almost 30 stages. All the, I guess, the normal competitors, you could say, it was an assisted event basically. So all catered for. They got accommodation each night, fed each night, and then for that 80% of the liaisons, they were getting a bus, a shuttle, a helicopter. They had it quite good, but I came up with the idea to do it all self-supported. So when they were in the helicopter, I'd be biking up the mountains. When they were in the bus commuting between the days and the stages, I'd be biking. And when they were shuttling, I'd be climbing up the hills. And there was even a boat charter in there. So when they were on the boat, I was going to be kayaking over the bay. Despite all that, I still somehow managed to take the win. Yeah. Which is, even I can't believe it, to be honest.
There was some solid names in the race too. I can't remember who the riders were off the top of my head now, but I remember thinking, like, it wasn't even that it was an easy win either. Like, there was some solid guys in there for sure.
Yeah, some fast Kiwis, some, heaps of fast international people. Matt Bear, who works with Pink Bike.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a ex-Canadian downhill champ. He's not slow. He was there. I managed to beat him. He made it on the podium, and it's.
So how does the logistics work for something like that? Like, obviously, you've got certain times that the race stages are open, so you can't get there at like 4 a.m. in the morning and do stage 1 to then make it through the rest of the day. Like, how did you work that out logistically? Was that something that you sat down and worked out, okay, I need to like ride X amount of distance in this time to get to each of these stages, or how did that look?
Yeah, so basically I had a meeting with the event organizer to get their permission to do this, obviously. And they were like, yep, you can do it, but we aren't going to alter anything for you. You've got to stick to our times. And if you don't make it there, you know, tough luck, you know. So essentially what I had to do is I had to make sure that I was the first one to start stage 1 of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd start super early, get to the top of stage 1 before all the others got there, or, you know, ideally as close to when they got there, because that's when the start marshal would get there. So yeah, I'd be the first, or, you know, one of the first people to get down stage 1, and then that was kind of when the game started. Then it was full gas to keep up with all the others whilst they were shuttling. Usually there'd be a few stages in the morning and then lunch, which for me worked out quite well. They'd, you know, stop for maybe 90 minutes for lunch, which gave me time to catch up again, because slowly I'd be falling towards the back of the pack. And then, yeah, after lunch, again, ideally, I'd be further up the field, starting with the first bunch of people, and then, again, slowly move back as the stages in the afternoon went on. And I managed to make all the stages all week, which, honestly, at the start of the week, I had no clue if that was possible. Didn't know how things would work out. It was just a big gamble. Took the chance, and it worked out in the end. And then at the end of each day was the commute to the next day's location. So that would basically be biking for most of the night to make it to the next day's
make it to the next mountain, for sure. So that's another question I've got, is like, some of these bigger rides, are you enjoying the like process of how, like, the logistics of the ride and the mapping and things like that? Is that something that you enjoy with some of these bigger projects?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say a lot of the enjoyment I get is coming up with a goal and working towards it. I think the actual doing of the goal, of the challenges, I definitely get a lot of enjoyment out of that, but it's not the full picture. Yeah. It's kind of, working towards something, and I love the feeling of ticking boxes, chasing a goal. Yeah. That's definitely what motivates me a lot.
Okay. Yeah, as I say, it's something that I know with some of my own bigger rides, it's like exactly that. It's that like process of like, okay, I think I can do whatever it may be, X amount. And then it's, okay, how does that physically look and how does that work? And then, as you say, like ticking all those boxes is I guess, a good way of explaining it in that sense. I want to ask you a bit more about like the mental aspect of it and how that comes across. I know we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but in the sense of like the highs and lows and what you're doing throughout the ride, like the ride that you just did recently over in Korea, that was what, 15 hours moving, I think it was, or something along those lines?
I think it was close to 20.
Was it? Okay. Maybe it was 18 moving, 20 total or something like that. But yeah, like when you're going through a ride like that, how does that feel? Like, what are you going into the ride feeling? How are you feeling throughout the ride? Just run me through some of those thoughts.
I think I do my best not to put any weight on these things. Like, I like to believe you can dictate your own feelings and you get to choose how you feel. And I often tell myself that going into something and make myself aware that you get to choose how you feel. And I don't get nervous. I don't get excited. It's just a normal day. Yeah. Like I go biking each day of the week, and when I go into a big mission, nothing changes. I'm just doing the same thing I usually would, but a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to take a little bit more food than I usually would. And, maybe there's a few more logistics, but there usually is when I go biking each day. Like, I'm in new places all the time, and nothing's consistent anyway, so there's always something to think about. And the same goes with these missions. So yeah, there's no big emotion, no big feeling. I just kind of go and do it.
Yeah.
And things are often quite normal. I'd say on a normal week to week, I wouldn't spend more than 4 hours on the bike a day. And then after the 4-5 hour mark on these bigger missions, which I think just kind of simplify, often that's when I maybe zone out. Like, my mind is quite active up until that 4 or 5 hour mark, and then things start to zone out. You get into the flow of it, you kind of find your place, and yeah, time disappears at that point until you bonk and hit a low. But yeah, it all gets quite simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to agree. And it's like, I feel like that it's actually a pretty interesting thing that you say that sort of 5 hour point, because I feel much the same in the sense of that first few hours, I'm always like calculating numbers in my head. I'm like looking at my screen. I'm like, all right, I'm doing this. I've got this. I need to tick this off by this point. And then those thoughts kind of slow down. I don't know for you, but for myself, I don't know if I ever stop thinking about that type of stuff and like sort of forecasting when I'm going to get to certain points within the ride that I know I've set sort of goals for. But I also feel that like they kind of happen less frequently, if that makes sense. And one thing I want to ask is like, how do you deal with being solo? Because on any of these longer rides, I prefer riding solo just because I don't have to match anyone's pace. I don't have to share like any social energy or anything like that. I'm just like headphones in, whether I'm listening to a podcast or music or whatever it may be. It might be like 2 a.m. in the morning, but I'm just like in the rhythm of pedaling and just like cruising, like how's that for you being solo a lot of these times?
Yeah, for me also, I definitely prefer to be solo. I guess on a whole, definitely quite a individual person, quite happy by myself. I'm not someone who gets much energy off of people. Obviously I like spending time with people and all that, but it's never like I need it or it doesn't motivate me. I'm quite happy with just kind of ticking along by myself. And I'd say it's definitely on the mental side. I think it just allows me to kind of be flexible and to adapt as things are coming up. And yeah, I think it's also just nice to have that time and space with yourself to think and digest. And I think there's a lot more you can take away.
Yeah.
On some aspects with that.
Yeah, I got 2 questions for that, because one of them, or the first one I'm thinking about, is sort of that suffering. And a lot of people talk about like these bigger rides and like the suffer aspect of it. I almost find it easier with the suffering aspect of when you are in the lows, you kind of can work through it in your own head and you don't have to be like conscious of somebody else and like annoying somebody else as such, because I feel like that's almost the worst when you are bonking and someone else is like, hey, it's good, like we're going to be sweet, blah, blah, blah. Like I feel like that makes it even worse for myself. Like, is that something that one, I guess, have you ever ridden with other people on some of these mega rides? And 2 is like, how do you feel with some of that suffering that goes along with some of the lows?
I guess, yeah, maybe to start off, I'll go with having someone else there. I think that's a good point. And it's like, if you're in a bad mood and then someone maybe sees that and they're like overly positive, that can definitely make things worse. So sure. But I don't think I've ever bonked with someone.
Yeah.
Or at least if I have, I've put on, a tough face and just gotten on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think being solo, you have all the time in the world to work those things out, and there's not someone chipping away at you. And in my eyes that makes it a little bit easier. And yeah, I think that's just also how I've always done it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my second question was now, and I've completely mental blanked on it as we started to go into that, but that's all right.
How do I cope when it gets tough? Or
Like how like what are some of the things when you mentioned earlier, like, that towards the end of the ride, through the lows, at some point you're going to get through that and hopefully out the other side. Like, what are some of those, like, let's call them coping mechanisms almost, that you work through with that? Like, I know for myself that as long as I continue to pedal, at some point something's going to change my mood, or I'm going to forget about why I'm so annoyed or upset, and then eventually I feel like it'll come out. And I'm trying to think about how I would say this or do this verbally, because it's just, I feel like such a mental thing. Like, have you got anything that you do actively to like change that mental aspect and like reframe what you're thinking?
Yeah, so I think the foundation of my thinking is that it's always going to get better. Your mood always sways. So that's the foundation. But I think to kind of help me to get to that point of pushing past the suffer to get to that next mood swing, to when things get better, I set many goals, and it's like, get to the top of that mountain. And as the challenge goes on, as it gets tougher, and as the mood swings happen more and more often, those goals get smaller. So at the start it might be get to that next mountaintop, get to the peak, and then it could be get to that corner.
Yeah.
And then if it gets super bad, like I don't know, do 1 more kilometer, do half a kilometer.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, ticking off those small goals, and even if they're small, you kind of maybe get a little bit of satisfaction out of it, and you're still moving forward, which I think is always the big key to getting these challenges and missions done. As long as you're moving forward, you're one step closer, basically. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like, I know it's something that whenever I've ridden with other people that have been struggling, and I know we just mentioned like the worst thing is having someone super positive beside you, but it's like, as long as you can keep that train rolling, even if it's at half the speed of what you actually want to be riding at some point, like, your body's going to pick itself back up and keep going. Have you ever got to a point on some of these rides where you've had to stop and you're like, I'm fully cooked right now?
I mean, there's been moments, and I think the thing is with me is I'm so stubborn. I'd never let myself give up. But in saying that, there are moments where at that point in time I've given it my all, and I've got to stop for one moment. But
yeah,
then I get in my head and I tell myself some things, and I'll maybe set myself a time, like, you've got 5 minutes, chill out, forget about it. And then I often kind of think of it as, at that point, as like a new day. I'm starting again, and I'll do my best to forget about what I've done or the past. And when I get on that bike, that's kind of kilometer 1. That's the start. Just so like, if you look at these big challenges and missions as what they are, if you look at the total distance, the total elevation, it's overwhelming. But I think if you kind of segment it up, especially once it gets hard, you can always climb like another 1,000 meters. So I'll often forget about the 5,000 meters I've done or whatever, and be like, okay, like, we've got 1,000 meters. That's a normal day. Just go and get it done. This is the start.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you've done before. We're just doing a normal day now.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same in some of the like harder moments. I'm like, all right, if I can just push 30 Ks, like, that's my regular commute to work. I do that every day. I'm sure I can make 30 Ks happen. And then it's like, all right, cool, done. And then you get to that next point, and 30 Ks for most people is over an hour. And when you think about how much your life changes in an hour, it's like, you're usually forgotten about why you're upset. Like,
Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
and you've always got another hour.
Yeah.
I think that's what you'll work out. Yeah, you think you don't, but then you do, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what else is there?
Yeah, definitely. Have you found, and it maybe you don't have much of an idea on this, but have you found as you're doing these longer rides and you're learning about yourself and things like that, like has that sort of brain and that thought pattern like transferred into like regular decision making? I know with myself that a lot of people call me a +2, -2 in my emotion range, and I stay very like calm and stable and just not overly excited but not overly upset. And I think a lot of it has to do with these type of rides where you almost need to find that balance a little bit. Do you find that in yourself?
Yeah, it's exactly the same with that way of thinking. But I think I've also gotten a lot better than I was in the past at focusing on what I can do instead of what I can't do. So, if you make a mistake or something happens, it's not, I don't get caught up on that as much anymore as I would in the past. It's just about focusing on what I can do to fix that or what I can do to keep moving forward. Just not getting stuck on whatever happened before, because oftentimes you can't, it's happened.
You can't change it.
Exactly. You've just got to do what you can to make that situation better.
Yeah. So talking a bit about like culture and things like that, especially with like the adventure world, how has that changed your own riding? Like, as you say, you've kind of started to trend in this direction where there's a bit more of like these adventures, new countries, new riding spots, things like that. Has that changed your outlook on riding? Like, I know you're pretty much like happy to ride anything. You just got off the gravel bike, you've ride mountain bikes, all of the above. Like, how does that change over the years for you?
I think, good question. I'm not too sure. I just feel like I just go biking, but I think I've been a little bit inspired lately by pushing myself more as a person, especially in the adventure sense. I think, as I touched on before, my first time overseas, I wouldn't put myself out there and speak to people. I'd avoid going to shops because that meant I had to talk to someone. But now I'm doing my best to push myself out of my comfort zone as a person. The past few years, it's been all about the physical aspect, but now for me, I want to develop as a person and kind of, see how I can push myself on that side of things, push myself into situations that scare me. And that's a lot of what I'm chasing with the adventure side of things and visiting new places and just putting myself out there, essentially. Yeah,
definitely. And I think I just watched your like Korea vlog, if you wanted to call it that. And it's like you were talking about like going into new restaurants and like they were talking you into buying desserts and stuff like that type of thing. And I'm like, that definitely seems like what you're talking about in that, like opening yourself up. Like, obviously, yes, the riding is huge and massive in that sense, but the ability to feel the culture and be in the world and just be, I guess, in the now versus like what is actually happening day to day for your riding aspect, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think I've isolated myself so much over the past few years. I've been lucky enough to go to some amazing places, but I haven't lived a lot of them.
Yeah.
I just stick to myself. I do my own thing, and that's cool, but there's so much more opportunities out there, I think, if you put yourself out there. And I think I'm starting to learn that a bit more. And the more I open myself up, the more things come my way, and the more I get to live these opportunities, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Have you, and this is something that just popped into my head, is have you ever spoken or like done much with Lachlan Morton? I feel like he's gone on a pretty similar adventure, alternate calendar kind of quest over the past few years and things like that. Have you ever done much with him at all or even thought about that?
Haven't done anything with him. I think I've definitely followed him over the past few years, and I wouldn't say I get inspired by people, but I think his concepts I've definitely taken bits and pieces out of. And yeah, I can maybe see myself kind of fitting his style and kind of applying it to my style a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely more so in the mountain bike world. But yeah, I think he definitely gets up to some cool stuff, and he's at an insane level as an athlete.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot I can take away off of him.
Yeah, it was just something, as I say, that just popped into my head, and I'm like, yeah, like he's done. Obviously, he's doing all the lifetime Grand Prix. He's done the tours, the road tours, and things like that in the past, and then obviously some of these insane, like mega adventures and things like that, and a lot of FKTs. And I just remember when he did the like Tour de France, but almost like how you were talking about doing the New Zealand Enduro. He did it fully self-supported and things like that. So yeah, it's just an interesting thing that I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that when I was doing the research. But yeah, for sure. I kind of fully lost my train of thought there where we were going with that. Oh, in the sense of like you're filming and editing and that type of thing, how does that work when you're doing things like an FKT, and then obviously your general vlogging? That's obviously a little bit easier, but are you sort of trying to film along like the route when you're like reconning the route, or how does that work when you do that type of stuff?
So yeah, that one you were just talking about, I basically had 2 weeks overseas. And I bike packed the whole length of what was going to be the FKT. So I took 1 week to bike pack the FKT course, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way there, I was filming as if it was the FKT attempt.
Yeah.
So same clothes, same setup, all of that, and third person shots and all that, because of course when you're chasing a fast time, you're not going to be stopping to film yourself and set up all these third person shots where you set up your phone or whatever, and then you go bike 10 meters back and then 10 meters back the other way. You just wouldn't, you'd be wasting hours. So yeah, filmed all the footage the week before, and then for the FKT itself, I just didn't film. Well, only 10% of the footage I filmed. All the POV stuff I filmed on the bike, on the FKT attempt, and that didn't slow me down, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Maybe it took a little bit of mental energy, but
it also distracted you from what you were doing as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess where I'm at as well is I've got to think about how I can, like, I guess I want to fuel this lifestyle, and I've got to think about how can I do that.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, I've got to put out content. I've got to put out something that people can digest and, kind of make media for my sponsors. So sure, maybe it slowed me down 5 minutes over the course of that time, but the value it gave in terms of allowing me to do these things is that's what it's fueled. And, it's worth that 5-minute penalty or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. How does that, what am I trying to say? Like, when you've got to put those together, like, how do you balance that with yourself? Because, as you say, you got to try and stay quite genuine to what you want to do, but then you've also got the commercial side of it that you have to balance. Like, what are you doing to balance that? Is that part of that being there for the 2 weeks to give yourself the time to, like, do the footage, do the commercial aspect of it, but then go and do the actual adventure? Is that part of that idea, or
I guess exactly. I think for me a big part of it is, so I don't compete in many events in terms of like against other people, and I think that's because I keep things pure to myself. Like, I do the things I want to do. I do the things that inspire me, and the things I do are because I fully want to do them. So that makes kind of putting in the work alongside that feel much less like actual work. So in that sense, it's easy and it doesn't take too much more energy on top of the actual task itself. Whereas I think maybe if I was doing the same but competing at an event which is set in stone, you're kind of on someone else's schedule and all that takes a lot more energy because it's not exactly how I'd want it to be.
Yeah.
Or the focus isn't put on where I'd want things to be put. So it doesn't feel as exciting to me anymore now that I've kind of got the opportunity to choose exactly how I want things to be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. And then before we start to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you about the gravel bike because that's sort of new to your world. What is it like being on a gravel bike, or have you had gravel bikes in the past?
This is a new opportunity for me. So the past few years I've been supported by Deviate Cycles, who were awesome to me. And yeah, they've definitely kind of helped me get to where I've been, but I was quite limited in terms of bike choice. They only had some like high pivot mountain bikes, like quite focused on descending. Awesome bikes, but as I kind of ventured into this more long distance style and side of biking, there are definitely some limiting factors. This year, I've been fortunate enough to partner with Kona, and I've got access to a full fleet of bikes, and it's opened up some new kind of, disciplines, and that's been super exciting for me. And again, I think it doesn't matter what I'm doing too much as long as I'm chasing that feeling of getting better and finding out what's possible. So these new bikes have kind of allowed me to diversify and chase that feeling in other pathways I haven't been able to explore before.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of cool that you sort of say that you're just riding a bike at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter whether it's drop bars, flat bars, downhill, uphill, whatever, as long as you're riding a bike. I think is such a cool idea to simplify it like that. And it's something I always say is I'll ride anything I can get my hands on, just purely based on if everybody's going for a mountain bike ride, I'll go do that. If everyone's going for a road ride, I'll go do that. And it's just that aspect of pedaling your bike is so chill.
Yeah. I definitely view bikes as like a tool. I'll come up with an idea, and it doesn't matter what bike it is. I'll just pick the best tool for the job.
Yeah.
And yeah, this year with this new opportunity with Kona, there's so many more tools, and I'm now able to pick a tool and then find out what job that's best for. So it's quite cool, and it's opened up so many new pathways, and it's made me think of some insane ideas, and quite excited about that moving forward.
Yeah. Can you share any of that stuff, or is it pretty hush-hush?
Well, I guess I've been quite a core mountain biker, I'd say, the past few years, focusing on the descents. So now it's maybe kind of also looking at what can be done on asphalt, on, stuff which isn't dirt, or, core mountain biking isn't all focused about the descents.
Yeah.
So I guess, I think a big part of the challenges and stuff I've done in the past haven't been focused on numbers in terms of distance or elevation. It's been more about linking mountains together or doing these big loops.
Yeah.
But now I think having access to these other bikes, it's maybe about how far can I bike in a day, and less about the locational mountains as such. And it's just about, doing bigger things, and maybe more emphasis on the numbers than it was before.
Yeah. Are you much of a numbers guy, or is it pretty chill when it comes to that? You're not studying, okay, I need to do X amount, this and that, or have you started to learn more in whether it be power, whether it be stats of the rides, fatigue, that type of stuff?
I'm definitely getting more into it now, but in the past, not as much, because I think with mountain biking, so many things change.
Yeah.
you know, like 10 kilometers in one location isn't the same as 10 kilometers in another location. Like it could take you 1 hour or it might take you 4 hours, you know.
Yeah.
But now kind of focusing more on the pedaling stuff, like, yeah, using power meters, which has, yeah, helped out a lot. And yeah, definitely for sure. Getting a lot more into that than I have been in the past, but there's still a lot more learning to go. And there's also a lot of holes you can dig there. So not wanting to get too caught up with that, but definitely using it for some guidance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think like the number that I always focus on when I'm like looking at my training and comparing is just the hours. It's as you say, doesn't matter where you're riding, mountain bikes, road bikes, gravel bikes, whatever it is. At the end of the day, an hour on a bike is an hour on a bike. And that's the big thing for me. Like I've got so many roadie friends, they're like, oh yeah, I do 300 Ks a week. I'm like, okay, cool. So you do 10 hours a week. And then I'm like, I do whatever it is, like 40 kilometers on my mountain bike, and that's X amount. Like, and that's not to make it a comparison by any means, but like that's I feel like a fun number to look at as well. But yeah. Before we wrap this up, is there anything else you wanted to chat about? Or I know we covered a lot.
Yeah, nothing comes to mind. Yeah, I think just still doing it for the love of it, which is awesome. And you know, despite all these opportunities and getting all these partners, you know, still having more fun than ever on the bike. And yeah, I think that's the cool thing. Like this, I think I've developed a lot. At least I like to think so, but at its core, I'm still the same and still chasing that same feeling, which I love. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us the hour to come and chat, because I feel like it's not often we get to chat in this way where it's like just talking about some of these insane rides. So
yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, get to explore my own mind a little bit. Like, yeah, quite often I just get on with these things myself, and you never dive into it, never think much of it. So yeah, quite a cool opportunity for myself too.
Yeah. Well, cheers.
Thank you.